Yo, what's good people, it's Cactus, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you over 60 shortcuts and tips in FL Studio. These are all shortcuts that I use on a daily basis, and although I'm not going to be showing you every single shortcut there is, I'm going to be showing you the ones that will make your workflow faster and get you making beats faster. The video was requested by you guys in the comments and in the Discord, so let's get straight into it. Alright, so I started making a beat and I thought it would be a good opportunity to show you all of my shortcuts, and I'm going to break it down into sections. I'm going to be showing you keyboard shortcuts for the playlist, piano roll and channel rack, and then I'll go through some tips afterwards. So I've added this down here just so you know exactly which keys I'm pressing, and I'm going to start with the playlist shortcuts. I'm going to go through these pretty fast as well just so I can get through all 60 of them. So when I'm in the playlist, the main three that I use are P to select the draw tool, C to select the cut tool, and then E for the select tool. Or for example, if you were on the draw tool and you wanted to select something, you could hold down Control, click, and then drag over. If you right click on something, you can delete it, or if you left click on something, it basically means you've selected that pattern, and then you can click to draw them in again. Once you've got the cut tool activated, if you want to chop off the smallest end of any sample or pattern, just hold shift so it cuts in a straight line, and then right click and then select the end. So for example, I could cut that bit. If I wanted it from the beginning, I could do it that way. Or if I just wanted to cut without deleting it, I could hold shift so it cuts in a straight line, then left click and it will just chop it. If I didn't hold shift, you can end up chopping it unevenly because this goes diagonally. If you want to select multiple patterns, I can hold Control, click and drag over one of them, and then hold shift as well, and then I can click and select whichever one I like. If I've messed up and I've chopped something that I didn't want to chop, for example, I could press Control and Z to bring it back, and then press Control and Alt and Z to bring it back even further. If you want to rearrange the tracks, instead of right clicking and selecting move up or move down, you can just hold shift, Alt, and then use the mouse wheel to bring it up so you can keep everything organized. If I want to stay even more organized, I can label my verses and my hooks and intro. So for example, here I'm going to double click and then drag. If you want to fine tune it, just right click on the red bar and you can bring that back or forth. I've got this intro here, so I'm going to press Alt and T. That's going to bring up the marker name. Then I can type in intro, hit enter. This section here is going to be my verse, so I'm going to label that verse 1. And now if I just wanted to select the intro, I could double click on intro and it highlights only the intro. If I wanted to quickly chop up one of the patterns so it didn't leave a tail of the reverb, for example, instead of rendering the whole track, what I could do is render a single one. So for example, this piano here, hold Control and click to highlight it. Then I'm going to press Control, Alt and C, and this is going to let me render that single pattern. So just make sure wave is selected. You can make it a higher bit rate if you wanted to, and then I can hit start. And as you can see, only this one piano here has been rendered. If I rendered it whilst I was only highlighting this part, you'd only have audio here and you wouldn't have to cut each end like I just did then. Whenever I want to mute a section without deleting it, I just hit T and then click on the patterns that I need to mute. And then once I'm done, I can click on it again and it brings it back. So they're the main shortcuts that I use in the playlist, and I want to show you some in the channel rack and the piano roll. But before I do that, I want to show you these quick shortcuts to navigate in between each one. So to bounce between the piano roll, channel rack, playlist, all the main parts of FL Studio. So when you need to quickly jump to the channel rack, it's F6. When you want to quickly jump to the piano roll, for example, if I had the piano highlighted, I could press F7. If I quickly need to load up a plugin, I can press F8 and then select the one that I need. To get to the mixer, it's F9. To open up MIDI controls, it's F10, and then you can easily navigate to the audio settings, general, file, etc. Or F11 will quickly take you to the project credits, so I can name this beat, call it points. The author is me, Cactus. Now when I export this beat, it's going to save that data. So it will come up with the title and artist whenever you open it somewhere. And then the other one you should know is F12. So F12 will close all plugins. So if you know that your CPU is acting a bit mad, or you just need to free up some space or just tidy things up, hit F12 and it closes everything. Alright, so in the channel rack, these are the main ones that I use. First, I'll keep it simple. If you want to copy something, make sure you've selected the one you need to copy. Press Control and C. And then, for example, if I wanted to paste that into the pad, Control and V. If you have sounds or plugins that you don't need, instead of right clicking and going to delete, you can just hit Alt and delete, hit enter, and that's going to get rid of it. To keep everything organized, you can hold Alt and then hit up and down just to move things around. So if you wanted your melodies at the top, you could bring them up and then have your drums underneath. To highlight multiple sounds or plugins, click on the first one, then hold shift and click on the other ones that you want to highlight. The other option is to double click to highlight everything, or click and drag to drag down the ones that you want to select. To link these to a mixer channel, I'm first going to organize them. So I'm going to come up here, go sort by, and then track number. You can see all these have numbers, so they're already linked. If you just want to send one of them to the mixer, just highlight the sound by clicking next to it. Hit F9 to go to the mixer. and then hit Control and L. If you had multiple sounds selected and then you hit just Control and L, that would send all of the sounds to the same mixer channel. But most of the time you want to separate everything. And if you want to separate them all, highlight the ones that you need to send, hit F9 to go back to the mixer, select the next empty channel, then press Control, Shift, and L, and that's going to link them all. If you want the colors in the mixer channel to match the ones in the channel rack, then make sure you color them before. So for example, I've got everything unlinked here, and let's say for example you want the effects to be pink. So I'm going to click drag to highlight the effects, come up here, go to color selected, and let's choose gradient. I'm going to select the first color, click on last, select one that is a little bit lighter, hit accept, make sure they're highlighted still. And then I'm just going to come along here. I'll go to an empty insert, Control, Shift, and L, and you can see the colors have copied as well. All right, so next I want to show you all of my top shortcuts in the piano roll. So once you've hit F7 to enter the piano roll, you can do so many things in here to make your workflow faster. And I'm actually going to jump to the hi-hats. So let's say, for example, you wanted the hi-hats to be all the same velocity. You can hit Control and A to highlight everything. Now come down to the velocity, hold Shift, click, and drag. And now you can see if I move it along, they're all going to be the same velocity. The same rules apply with the draw tool and the select. So if I hold Control, I can click and drag over these. Let's say, for example, you only wanted the first half of the hi-hats and you didn't want to change it for the second half. What I could do is right click up here. So I've only got the first half selected. Control and B to copy it. If I want to make some kind of hi-hat roll, and for example I want the notes to come up at pretty much an even velocity, what I could do is hold Control, click, and drag over one of these, hold Alt and U to chop it up. I'm going to click accept, and you can see they're all the same velocity. And what I want to do right here is make the velocity come up gradually. So with left click, it's not as even. But instead of that, if you right click and drag up, now you can see that it's a more even spread. So let me show you how that would sound. I'm going to take you into the kick pattern, and let's say for example you've recorded this kick pattern in with your MIDI and some of these notes are slightly off. If you want to quickly quantize them, you can hit Control and A to highlight everything and then hit Control and Q. Quantize is going to work based around the snap to grid that you've set. So for example, because mine's on line, it's going to jump to the nearest line. So Control and Q. If for example it was set on a 6th step, and I'll bring these slightly off so it's in the middle, it's going to jump to the nearest 6th step. If you need more quantized settings, hit Alt and Q. Now you can adjust the start time, duration, sensitivity, and the levels. To quickly move up and down octaves, I'm in the piano roll for the actual piano melody here. I'm going to press Control and A, hold Control, and then hit up, or I can do it down. And that's basically keeping it in the same key, but it's up an octave. So right here, it starts on D sharp 4. That's going to jump up to D sharp 5. If I just want to change the pitch and bring it up a semitone at a time, I can hold Shift and click up or down. So the melody right here is in D sharp minor. If I hold Shift and click up, it's going to be in E minor. I can do that with single notes or multiple notes too. So if I hold Control, again, hold Shift, and then click over the ones that I want to move, I can bring them all up as well. If you want to shorten all the notes, for example, if you had a hi-hat pattern like this, and you've drawn them out this length, if you wanted it a little bit more visible so you've got more flexibility, hit Shift and D, and that's going to bring them all to the same length depending on how you've got snap to grid set. So I'll show you what it would be like online. So it was Control and Z to undo that, Shift and D, and you can see these are a little bit longer. If you want to make all of the notes join up, which is usually good for pianos, what I'm going to do is just draw a note in here, just so these N1s stretch. Hit Control and A to highlight everything, and then Control and L. Now you can see that all the notes have stretched to meet the others, and now I can just get rid of that last one that I added. If I wanted to make this melody or chord progression a little bit interesting, what I could maybe do is hold Control, click, and drag over the piano notes, maybe just the chords, and then hit Alt and A, which opens the arpeggiator. From here I can select the normal one, so it's just going up and back down, or I can flip it or select the alternate one. If the piano was all the same velocity because you've drawn it in, and let's say you wanted a more human feel, you can just press Control and A to highlight everything, hit Alt and R to open the randomizer. Now you can see if I bring the velocity down, they're all going down, but it's a little bit more random, so it's more of a human feel. And the last one I'll show you is how to bring all of the notes to one note. So this is perfect for when you want to copy the 8-weight pattern and paste it into the kick. So right now I've got this 8-weight pattern. I'm going to hit Control and A and then Control and C to copy it. I'm going to go into the kick piano roll and then hit Control and V to paste it. I'm going to hold Control, click, drag over the slide notes, and then hit delete. That's just going to get rid of them. And now all of these, I want them on C. So I'm going to press Control and A to highlight everything, and then I'm going to hit Alt and K. And you can see everything's brought down to C5. The first time you do this, it's going to look a little bit different. So you need to play around with these. I think the first time all you need to do is right click on C6. You might need to hold Control or Alt. Just play around with some of the settings. I can't remember exactly what it was, but after the first time you do it, you won't need to do it again. You just hit Alt and K, and then it sets it to C5. So just hit enter, and then you've got got the same kick pattern as the 808. From there, I usually like to hit shift and D like I did before, just so I've got more visibility. And then before I go on to the tips, I've just got some bonus shortcuts that I want to show you. So the first one is to quickly find samples in the browser. So I'm going to press Control and F. Now it's going to open the smart search. Let's say, for example, I knew this 808 sample that I needed, and it was called Fat and Wide, and I couldn't remember exactly where it was. I can just type in fat, hit enter, and that's going to search in the folder and find the nearest one. If that wasn't the right one, I could hit F3 to go to the next sample that had fat in it, or I could hit F2 to go to the previous one. To quickly change the sample, for example, if you wanted to test out all of the 808s, make sure you've got the 808 in the channel rack highlighted, and then just click the mouse wheel on the sample that you want to swap it for. So for example, if I wanted to try some of these, like the Fat and Wide one, you can see it's instantly swapped it. Hit spacebar to stop. You can do the same with any sound. So if I wanted to test out all of the hi-hats, I can use the mouse wheel to click and it swaps it here. And then I can quickly cycle through some. One tool that I'm always using is Edison. So I'm going to hit F9 to go to the mixer channel, and then to open Edison on any insert that you've selected, just hit shift and E. If you need to render a certain section, let's say for example, I wanted to render this whole thing, I just double clicked and then dragged over to highlight it. I'm going to go to the master, click this button here, and then hit Alt and R, and that's going to open the render options. I usually leave it on cut remainder just so it's the right length, but if you wanted to leave a reverb tail, for example, just go on leave remainder. If you want to quickly change the order of the inserts, just hover over them, use the mouse wheel to go up and down. So they're pretty much all of the shortcuts that I use in FL Studio. And now I just want to show you a quick few tips that I personally use to speed up my workflow. The first one, which everyone should know, is just to split by channel. If I click on here, I've got this pattern selected which has an 808 in it, a kick and a hi-hat. If I want to separate all of them, I'm just going to come up here and then go on split by channel. Now you can see I can click and drag down and I've got them all separated. If you want to play around with some arrangement ideas for the beat, you're in two minds and you don't really know if you want to start with the hook or start with the verse, or you just want to experiment, what you can do is actually create a new arrangement. So if you click here, you can click on add one, and then yeah, we can just call it arrangement 2, hit enter. Now you've got a completely different arrangement. So you can make a new one here, you can drag your samples in, and if you want to go back to the other one, just click up here and go to the first arrangement. The next one is a quick organization tip, and I like to do this with automations. So for example, I know the halftimes on the piano, so I'm going to hold Alt and Shift and then use the mouse wheel to bring the halftime just below the piano. Now I'm going to right click on track 2 and select group with this track, and that just means that if I don't want all of the automations to be visible, I can just select this here and it just keeps it a bit neater. I'm going to do the same with this filter because I know that's linked to the piano as well. So right click, group with above track. Now I can hide them both. If I wanted the filter to come on at exactly the same time as a different effects like halftime, instead of manually drawing the curves just to match it, a quick solution is to double click in the halftime automation, go to the wrench tool, click copy state, and then open up the love filter one, click on the wrench tool again and then paste state. You can see that they're both identical. Another quick tip for organization is just to insert tracks as well. So if I right click on any of them, I can insert one here and that brings the rest of them down. Next, I'm going to bring in this vocal chop, and if I quickly want it to match the tempo of the beat, I can see the BPM of the sample is 120 BPM. If I click on here, go to fit to tempo and then select type in BPM, I can just type in 120 and that's going to bring it in time without changing the pitch. If I wanted to quickly render a track, let's say my counter melody, I could right click on track 4 because I know the counter melody is here, and then just go consolidate this track, and then you can either do time selection, which is the red bar, or the full song, which is everything. I'll do the full song, hit start. As you can see, it's rendered it for me and it's muted the original. If you wanted to chop one of the samples and it had clicks or pops in it, let's say for example you've chopped this here, my guess is this sample, because it's ended so suddenly, it would have some kind of click or pop. So I'm going to double click in there and select declicking mode to generic, bleeding. Now you can see it's got a quick fade out. If you turn off stretch mode, hold Alt, click, and drag, you can manually change it. Another tip I want to show you is fast hi-hat patterns. To get a quick drill bounce, you want to click on the first one, skip 2, click on the next one, skip 2, then click on this one. Hit F7 to go to the piano roll, hit Control and A so it highlights everything, right click this red bar and bring it back here. Now press Control and B until you get to this 5 mark, which means you've got a 4-bar loop. So now you can see you've got a quick pattern. If you want a trap pattern, just right click and then fill each 2-step. Or if you want more of a bounce, right click, hit fill each 4-step, hit F7 to go to the piano roll, Control and A to highlight everything. Now you want to shift click on any of the notes and then drag it. Holding shift and click will just copy the notes. So now you can see every other one is highlighted. If I hold Alt and then use the mouse wheel to scroll down, you can see that it's only bringing down the velocity of the highlighted notes. So if you listen to this, you've got more of a bounce. If you want to copy plugin settings, for example this reverb, I'm going to click on this arrow, left click and hold on save preset as, and then drag it over something else. Let's say the counter melody. Now you can see it's copied the exact same settings. And now the last tip I want to show you, which everyone should have done by now, is saving a template. So let's say you've got some favorite sounds, you've got a go-to kick and 808, you've got a hi-hat pattern which you usually start off with, and then in the mixer you usually have everything linked up the same way. So you might have your melody on insert 1, kick on insert 2, 808 on insert 3, and then you might have something like an EQ on the melody. Instead of creating that every single time, what you want to do is bring in your favorite sounds. For example, I've got my kick and 808 here. I've just renamed them. My go-to tempo is usually 141. I don't have an instrument on here yet, but I'm just going to link the kick, 808, snare and counter snare for now. Control Shift and L to link them. Insert 1 is where my melody is going to go, so I'm just going to add an EQ and maybe some settings like this, just because you know you usually roll off some lows. For the counter snare, I already showed you how to get that quick drill bounce, and let's say that's all you need for now. On the master, I always have a classic clipper, fruity balance, and then zgame editor for when I'm making videos. So now I want to save this as a template, so every time I open FL Studio, this is what's going to open, and this is just going to speed up your workflow so much. You don't have to start looking for sounds and dragging them in. Everything's just good to go. Next thing that you need to do is go to File and then Save As. This bit's important, so you need to go to your main drive, which is usually C, go to Program Files, Image Line, FL Studio, whichever version you're using, then Data, then Templates, and save it here. So I'm just going to name this Drill Template 141 because that's the BPM. Hit Save. The first time you do it, you might need to close FL Studio, which I have done. And then when you reopen it, go to File, New from Template, and you can see the one that we tested is right here. But let's say you want to skip that step, and literally every time you open FL Studio, it just opens with that template. Hit F10 to open this bit, then you want to go to General, and then down here where you see Default Template, mine's set to Drill Template, but I could change it to the one we just used. So make sure you're getting your template saved. It took me way too long to set up my first one, and I just wasted so much time. So now that I have a template, every time I open FL Studio, I'm just good to go. So I hope you liked the video, and I hope you took some gems from this one. I think these shortcuts are just a must-know for producers. As soon as you start learning the keyboard shortcuts, you can make beats twice as fast. It is one of those things that you just need to practice with, so whenever you're doing something, just try and go back to the shortcuts that I've showed you, and after a while, it'll just become muscle memory. You'll just do it without even realizing it. So yeah, I know I didn't really show you how to make a beat today, but I think this video was essential, and if you think I've missed any shortcuts, then let me know in the comments. Like I said, I didn't really want to include every single shortcut. I just wanted to show you the ones that I personally use and the ones that I think that you need to know as a producer. But yo, once again, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.